A very warm welcome to all of you to this very exciting session, which is CXO panel discussion on from local to global, taking Indian food to every dining table. I would take this opportunity to introduce our panelists, Mr. Nitin Bhandari, General Manager, PepsiCo India, Mr. Sunay Bhasin, MTR Foods, CEO of MTR Foods, Mr. Gaurav Sisodiya, Vice President, Food and Allied Sector in West India, and we'll also be joined by Mr. Rajneet Kohli. He'll be joining shortly. He's Executive Director Foods, Hindustan Unilever Limited. And to guide today's discussion, we have with us our moderator, Mr. Abhishek Gupta. Over to you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneh. And a very good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for joining in such large numbers. I can see people standing outside. You can take these chairs also, if you don't mind. You can take the other chairs also on the side. Okay, so we'll begin, and Rajneet will join perhaps in another 2-3 minutes time. So today's session, we've divided into 4 parts. While the name does suggest around going global now from just being local, and many of the corporates have already started doing that. But for the MSMEs, for the startup, for the entrepreneurs, what is the next wave of going global is what the discussion is going to be about. So you've already heard the introductions for the speakers. The 4 areas which I was referring to are the following. Number 1, we are going to talk about innovation and R&D. Goes without saying that there is a lot more as a nation we need to do in the same. Niti Aayog, you all may be aware, is coming up with an index around the same, and of course food processing is a major sector. There are initiatives by the Government of India where in the last budget they spoke about 1 lakh crore of support which the government will provide through a scheme which is called Research Development and Innovation Scheme through the ANRF under Department of Science and Technology. And there are not just government bodies, but there are multilateral, bilateral corporations which are promoting, which are encouraging the whole initiative around innovation and R&D, including UNDP, JICA, and many of the other big multilateral, bilateral agencies. So this is around innovation and R&D, and we are going to have discussion around innovation and R&D. Number 2 is around the brand recall. I think it goes without saying that the ultimate consumption is mainly dependent upon the brand recall. So what's the value of brand? How can we build brand India? How can we build specific product brands, especially when we are talking about going global? Languages differ, preferences differ, the cultures differ. So how do we brand ourselves? Is there a mother brand we need to create? Is there a customization of brand we need to create for each country? So we'll talk about the branding aspect. Number 3, we are going to talk about the supply chain. While we have spoken about various kinds of raw material, whether it is plant-based, animal-based, and huge availability in India, and at the same time there are technologies, machineries which we are importing today. There are issues around, of course, logistics infrastructure. So there are a whole lot of things which need to be sorted from a supply chain perspective when we are talking about going global. And that, of course, also includes exports. And then finally, I think it goes without saying that capital, which is investment, is going to be the key. Whether it is domestic investments or it is FDI. But ultimately, we are talking about entrepreneurs, businesses to invest into this potential, to leverage what India already has and what India can create for the world. So these are the 4 areas we are going to get into over the next 35 to 40 minutes. And then we will open the floor for question and answers in the room. So with that, if I may just go to our esteemed panelists and ask them a few questions, and then, of course, um, please feel free to, I may ask a question to a particular speaker, but please feel free to add anything if you have. Um, so talking about R&D, um, the the whole focus, I think purely, as I just spoke about, the government of India has been putting a lot of focus around innovation and R&D in global palette. But I think um, I would, with your permission, I would just wait for Rajneet to join, and then perhaps it's better that if we ask those questions when he's there. But let's move on to the brand piece. And Nitin, uh, thank you so much for joining. I don't think there is any better person than you or better organization than PepsiCo to talk about brand. Uh, when we talk about brand recall, my first question to you is, first of all, which are the national brand examples which come to your mind? Which are the best in the world? Because now we are talking about at a country level. We are talking about going global. We are not talking about just a particular market we are trying to cater. So which are some of those examples globally which come to your mind and perhaps we can learn from, that how some of these countries have created brand for themselves across the world?
Thank you, Abhishek. Appreciate the question. I think as we are thinking about it, it's a fantastic topic and it's really close to my heart as well, right? As we are starting to think about taking Indian food to the world's dining table, I think there are a few things that we need to keep in mind, right? I think first is that global expansion is not about just entering international markets, right? Many brands have done that for a long period of time. But it's really about winning hearts and minds of people in those international markets, the mainstream audiences that we are talking about. I'm just reframing the question there, right? We have a fantastic start point, right, from a diaspora. Think about it. We have 35 million people, right, who are Indians living abroad, yeah? And, these people, they are our initial consumer base, right? They love to try our products. They don't want to talk about our products, right? And, this gives Indian brands a fantastic entry point into markets, yeah? I think one of the challenges that we faced over the last many years is that we've seen these base as a consuming base. But I think if you do that, then you are really limiting the opportunity and making it quite niche, right? I think how brands need to see about the diaspora is, how brands need to see the diaspora is not about them being as consumer base, but as advocates, as influencers, who open up the door for our portfolio to the broader audience, right, out there. Now, Indians love to socialize, right? Indians love to talk about our culture. We're really proud, right, as a community. So what brands need to do to succeed is to give fodder, right? Is to give stories to people, to really talk about our culture. And I feel that, this is really important because there is so much to tell from the point of view of Indian culture, the provenance, and we have seen some really great examples. You spoke about brands that others have built, and I feel that we should talk about brands that we have built, right? Think about Indian tea, right? Indian tea in the UK, it started, chai for certain Indian people out there, but I think companies like Tata's, Tetley, they've really, really invested in stories of provenance like Assam tea, Darjeeling tea. We've spoken about, elevated the conversation to chai culture, right? In the broader scheme of cafe culture outside. So these things have really helped brands like ours to really establish in the global market. I think it's happening organically at this stage. I think if we need to look at our broader MSME group, what is it that we can do? I think there are three big areas that we can focus on to structure in a structured way, leverage the diaspora and really tell our story out there. I think first is, participate aggressively in community events. I've seen that those community events abroad are not for Indians. They are really a cultural immersions for locals outside. So there are more Americans in the US in an Indian event on Diwali than there are Indians. So that's a fantastic starting point to really seed our stories. But as the media landscape is emerging, we've begun to realize, it's been a great equalizer. Access on digital like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think brands, have still not really pivoted their playbook, to play in these digital channels to really tell our story out there. And third piece is, I think we've seen brands like Bira 91 as well, like the Indian brand gone outside, how they leveraged very structured, community ambassador programs, really signing on advocates in college campuses to really tell our story out there. And it's really, really done well. So I think what I'd say is, diaspora is a huge tailwind for us. Don't think of them as consumers, think of them as advocates, because the end game is to go to the mainstream audiences, seed our stories really, really well, and structure it in a way that, we are playing it in a very deliberate fashion to take it and make a really big impact. So that's how we will create brands for our own, and obviously,
Yeah, so I agree with him on the diaspora part, but I think one of the things we are not leveraging as well that we probably could to build an Indian brand globally or Indian food brand globally is the fact that we are still very much focused on largely commodities. I don't think there's enough value addition that we are investing behind. At the end of the day, a brand is as strong as the product that your proposition comes from your product. The experience that a consumer actually gets is from your product. If your product doesn't talk to me, right, no matter how great your brand might be, I may not necessarily, warm up to the proposition that you have. So when I look at that space, I think what we need to start building as an ecosystem here in India is focusing more on value addition, focusing more on what the consumer really wants, right? Focusing, and we do that in India. I mean, we are Orkla. We have looked around, what the local needs are. We are proudly local. India is a collection of many cultures and many food cuisine clusters, right? We do that in India. We don't do that as much abroad. So really immersing in terms of what the consumers are seeking and marrying that with what we have and then adding value, I think will go a long way in building strong Indian food brands globally.
No, that's very helpful. And Nitin, I'm glad you spoke about some of the leading examples like Indian Chai. And Sunay, I can really think of some of the global brands when you talk about Swiss cheese or Swiss chocolates. It's Swiss, right? Ultimately, that's the link that they've been able to draw, perhaps through linking tourism with some of these products which they globally have. So thank you so much. This is very helpful. Sunay, if we talk about going global, one of the, I think, biggest concerns. Sorry, Rajni. First of all, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Sorry for being late.
No problem. Thank you so much for joining. No issues.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So when we're talking about going global, Sunay, one of the most important elements is around food safety, around compliances. And if I may say, we are a little weaker as compared to some of the geographies where we export our products. What are the elements as an MSME or as a business? What are those elements do you think we should attend to, and how? What are the key components of this whole puzzle?
I think a lot of times, I'm going to use the word quality a little loosely, right? When I talk about food safety and compliance, I think it's largely about your quality that you bring out. A lot of times, quality, we look at it from a compliance point of view. I think even when you are starting off, if you change the lens and you start looking at quality as a non-negotiable that's built into what you're bringing to the table, that will change the game. But again, I think that is more how you approach what you are what you're striving to do. But one of the biggest gaps that we see, again, all our industries are largely agri-based. I mean, I'm going to take an example of things like tea or spices or many other agri products. I think we need a concerted effort around using, the government, using our farmers. There's an ecosystem which needs to focus on quality. It's not just one player that can just say, okay, I'm only going to focus on quality, because ultimately a lot of food processing is about using agri commodities, like I said, and adding value. We have a lot of issues where either knowledge or compliance or lack of it starts from, the back end itself, the place where it is produced. Use of pesticides, right? We spoke about yesterday when we were talking to Gadkari ji also and Chirag Paswan. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is we don't get quality produce that you can use, whether it's tea or spices or many other things. There is non-compliance starting from the farm level itself. So I think, like I said, we need to build an ecosystem. We need to work together. We need to work together with the government. We need to do education. We need to make a plan, a long-term plan, and not just a short-term plan. Look at what are the possible things that you can do to change this mindset, right? It's not about getting the crop out. It's making sure. So the quality mindset as a philosophy, as a theory of how you approach things, rather than saying, okay, I have to comply to something more. I think that will, again, set us up. And then having a long-term plan, maybe a 5-year plan, maybe picking up a few sectors which are agri-dependent, and then, really focusing on making sure that the whole ecosystem, education, technology, food processing sector, everything is enabled over there to bring that promise of food safety, compliance, quality. And then build a couple of such examples, take with stories that Nitin was saying, build those stories, and then build some success models that can then be replicated across.
Sure. Very helpful, Sunay. So what I understand you're saying is, I think the softer element in this whole capacity building, the mindset change also is a very important part of absolutely, point well taken. Thank you. Rajneet, I'll come to you. We've briefly spoken about innovation and R&D, but of course we are waiting to hear from the expert. The government is trying to make a lot of efforts towards innovation, grassroots innovation, R&D, etc. When we are talking about going global, it is important that we suit our products, or that we create the products which are catering to the global audience or global consumers.
Right.
What role does innovation and R&D have to play in that regard?
No, it's a good question. Am I audible?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I think Indian culinary, first and foremost, is not only rich, it's very resilient. I mean, talk about spices from Kerala's kitchen to when you come to Delhi, I can't resist the chaat and Golgappas here. I mean, you can't just be here. And from, it's so much about, the food is so much about comfort, it's culture, it's connection. All of us travel out, but after a couple of days, we all, when we come back, we want your dal chawal. So that's the comfort that we want to come back to. And from Unilever's perspective, we have brands in South which are Three Roses. Now, people in North not know it, but it's something people swear by. It's not a tea. It's something which is ritual. It's like a culture thing. It's there. So it's Taj Mahal in North. Then you have Kisan ketchup. We have memories born out of that. All in our tiffins. People have gone on a Horlicks for generations. And there's a 35 million plus diaspora which is living outside, with also earning for that. I mean, and some habits change, but why should some habits change when it comes to food? People want the same food. So when you talk about going global, this is a set of people who want the same taste, but also you have to cater to not only Indian diaspora, to your point, we have to also look at a wider cast, a wider net. And as yesterday's Pradhan Mantri ji said, that we want to have Indian food in every table, every dining table. I mean, that's what he kind of called out for. And therefore the onus is on to us, then how do you kind of pivot? You rightly said, I mean, chai today, there are more chai centers there in UK today than that you have coffees. And for years, Indians as Indians, we've been using the dip tea, right? We don't warm up to that. We want our authentic chai, boiled chai, we need that. So we are proud of Indian taste, we're coming back to that, and the global expectation. But doesn't that doesn't mean that we don't pivot to ensuring that we are able to ensuring that we cater to global markets. For example, from Unilever's perspective, we go to 130, we take Indian food to 130 countries, whether it's UK, US, but then you kind of change the taste. For example, in US, they like more ginger in the tea. So you kind of pivot and ensure that your R&D, while you can keep the same natural care, three roses, but you kind of make that sure that there's more ginger taste there. Some markets in brew coffee we have, you kind of make that they don't like chicory, so you have 100% coffee there. A great example that comes to my mind, which is Indian flavor, authentic, but also combining it with a global, fusion food, I would say, is Hellmann's. It's a #1 mayonnaise brand, but it's tandoori. We have the tandoori masalas of India, which we send across, which then you mix it up there, and it's all across the global sandwich platter. So it's up to us that how do we do it and ensure that we get in the Indian authenticity there, but also innovate with whatever global is looking for. Another great example is there's curry pots which we export to through Knorr brand. It's a $5 billion brand, but it's all curry pots with Indian masalas again, where they put that because they love curry, there's spice there. So our jobs as leaders not only to dilute taste, is how to ensure that we bridge this gap from our kitchens to the globe and bring that authenticity and that taste to the global world. That's all.
Thank you, Rajneet. And even not just the flavor, I believe, and I'm sure you have a dedicated unit working on the same, but packaging, the texture, right, the look and feel of the product, I'm sure they also need to be customized.
No, absolutely. In fact, the R&D head is here sitting back. Jata, she runs an army of 200 plus culinary experts and scientists that we have in our R&D center. But you're absolutely right. Let me give an example, two more examples. For example, tomato ketchup, we are as Kisan as brand. Kisan being coming from the farmer is authentic. But you change the format when you go to Mexico. They use the same ketchup. We convert it into cubes. Wow. That's utilized in the Mexican food. And the same Mexican food, when it goes to Spain and US, they use our Kisan, cubes on ketchup. Another good example is I talked about Hellmann's. Across packaging, when you go to brew to outside, they don't like sachets. They want the tin cups which are there. So how do you make that sustainable? And you have to be very clear that they need sustainable packaging. A lot of them require sustainable packaging. All that work has to be there. We've also customized not the product. For example, there's this tofu curry, makhani. There's kadhai tofu. There's rajma that we go to. We don't have that in India, but globally that's what the European markets love. They want a combination of that. So it's packaging that needs to be global. It has to be in different formats of sachet and convenience. And of course there is variety that you do in terms of flavor and authenticity there.
Lovely, thank you. I would love to continue talking to you about this. It's very, very interesting. You spoke about ketchup as cubes. But Gaurav, I'll come to you. From an investment perspective, nothing works if there's no money. We are talking about making investments, again, from the perspective of going global, whether it is domestic investments or it is FDI. But what are some of these initiatives which the government, you represent partly the government as well. So Invest India, Ministry of Food Processing, Ministry of Health, of course Department of Commerce, DPIIT, which are some of those key initiatives in the food processing sector, which even some of our MSMEs and entrepreneurs can leverage, or some of our international investors could look at?
Sure. Thanks, Abhishek. And thanks for our invitation to this key forum with industry leaders. So I believe the government acts as a catalyst and a partner to the industry for driving economic growth. Right. Basis the need of the industry, be it large industry, MSMEs, SMEs, the government role is to create a policy framework which is business friendly, and also incentivize industry where there are any kind of disruptions or disparities in terms of cost competitiveness. In the past, if you see, FDI in India has been increasing at a steady pace. We've been reaching new records every year. If you look at the FDI that has come into the country, it has come in over 65 sectors and in over all these states and union territories, which makes India as the most open economy on this entire planet, offering a variety of opportunity areas across sectors. And food processing has been one of the critical sectors which has been getting this FDI. Almost all of these, global companies are present in India and have been expanding at a global pace. Like it was announced yesterday as well by Honorable Minister that this time as well, MOUs worth over 1 lakh crores are being signed. So that depicts the strength of the sector and the trust that industry has on this sector. Now to support this ease of doing business, I think there have been several, interventions that have been done by the government, including, GST reforms to creation of digital platforms such as National Single Window System, to the Jan Vishwas bill and regulatory simplifications. These kind of interventions impact not only the large industry, but also the MSMEs and SMEs. Large industry companies, they have their own resources, strengths, money, and people who can usually manage across all of these hurdles. But the MSMEs and the smaller players actually are the ones who do not have that capacity and those resources. Therefore, it impacts them a lot. Now, coming to the disparity or cost disability, wherever the government felt, and I don't just represent the government, I also represent the industry, right? So, Invest India was created as an entity that could be a part of the government but work for the industry. And similar entities have also been set up by a lot of states as well at the state level. From our key role, and we were set up by the government to facilitate the industry from, where companies are evaluating market entry opportunities, helping companies understand what is the market opportunity, helping them navigate through the complex ecosystem from identifying which states they could look at, where is raw material availability, where is the right ecosystem, to what are the policies and schemes and incentives that would impact them, to, even expediting approvals and clearances so that they can execute their investment plans in a more efficient manner and investments can come in easily. In terms of, with all of this support ecosystem that the government has created at the central as well as state level, there are still, a lot of asks in terms of incentives. Wherever, the government has felt that there is cost disability, there have been incentives that have been offered. Be it from larger companies, the production linked incentives that were offered for both getting in investments and promoting exports. And PLI was, as we all know, in food processing sector was majorly for large companies. To the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, which offers incentives for creation of, processing capacities to integrated cold chain, which is the need of the hour. And these are the kind of incentives that are majorly needed by MSMEs, and they're targeted at those MSME level to the tune of 35% or 50% basis the area, and incentive capping of 5 crores and 10 crores. So that's the need for the MSMEs. To even the SMEs, and yesterday the Honorable Prime Minister also launched the disbursement of the credit link subsidy under PMFME to about 25,000 micro enterprises. So there have been multiple schemes at the central level. I think what is the need of the hour right now is a lot of these MSMEs, SMEs, and maybe sometimes large companies also are not aware of the kind of incentives that they could avail. Now, this is the central level. Apart from the state level also, since there is a lot of competition among states to get these kind of investments, because it ultimately impacts their ecosystem, creates employment, generates more revenue for the state's income as well. There have been several, incentives, including capital subsidies, to land rebates, to utility reimbursements, to sometimes, SGST reimbursements as well, which have been there from the states. And if you look at the ecosystem, especially states which are aspiring to become more industrial, they have been offering more and more, conducive incentives. So I think incentives are there, and innovative ecosystem and supporting ecosystem is also there. I think it is the need of the hour for the government, central government, state government, and the industry to work together, identify more issues that can be, resolved through policy intervention as well as incentives. Thanks.
Thank you, Gaurav, and I'll come back to you on that a little later as well. Nitin, coming back to you, I think, again, we've spoken about innovation, but how about innovative marketing? What about some of the, and again, from the perspective of our audience, where there are entrepreneurs, there are MSMEs here, if they would like to take some learning from you about some of the innovative marketing, branding, communication strategies, imagine a medium or a small size enterprise who would like to go global. What are some of those things which you would like to tell them?
I love the question there. So if you think about it, for decades, our products, have been available, right, in the international markets. but hota kya hai ki those products are available in ethnic aisles, right? Indians visit those aisles, so our scope and the people that we are targeting remains really, really niche. If our companies, local companies, really want to build scale brands outside, they need to fish where the fish are, right? They need to compete with the local brands head to head out there. I think there are 4 or 5 things, that, I can advise people can put some deliberate action on. I think first is, if I just think about fish where the fish are, right? Ethnic aisles is not going to get you there, so you need to be in the mainstream aisles, which is damn difficult, costs a lot of money, it's not easy. I think in the last 4 to 5 years, the shopping landscape has changed dramatically with the rise of online. You think about India as well, right? How it has become a great equalizer. So your ability to have access to millions and millions of households across in those relevant countries, is far easier now than it was 10 years ago. So I would advise people, point number 1 is to pivot our playbook from just thinking about big stores, home aisle, make a lot of listing investments, to pivot towards digital. I think that could be a big area that we can work on, and I think a lot of companies, we can learn from big companies, right? So think about Amul as well, right? How they have really invested in online and built ghee, paneer as really big Indian brands for healthy cooking and all of those pieces. So I'm sure a lot of our MSME partners here can learn from that. That's one big thing. And the second is, I think Rajneet spoke about it earlier as well, and you asked that question, that while we need to be culturally rich about that we are from India, to truly unlock scale, you need to adapt locally, right, to the country that you're going to. And this is really, really important if we want mass adoption. I think I have just one example which comes to mind. While I can talk about loads of examples from PepsiCo, think about Kurkure, think about Nimbus, brands that we've created in India that now are big brands in Canada, Middle East, US, right? But what I'd like to give an example in more detail is about this very little known company called Patak's. I don't know if you've heard about it, right? They started in the 60s in the UK by an Indian entrepreneur, right? They started with bold curries, right? Pastes for people to help cook. But today it's one of the biggest brands in ready to cook markets in the UK. What did they do? They adapted their flavors to milder flavor profiles, right? Which suited really well. And you spoke about packaging, right? They adjusted portion sizes. They realized that Brits don't like elaborately cooked the way Indians do. So they entered into new categories like ready mixes and all of those pieces. So as you think about your consumer and really put that at the heart of everything you do, your core essential idea can become so relevant locally that there is a lot of adoption. I think so. Adapting the product itself, is super important, and I would advise people to think about. It's not about how can I sell what I have. It's about thinking how can I adapt so that it becomes truly relevant to the countries that I'm going into. I think third is, small companies will always be crunched on the amount of money they can spend on advertising, marketing. So packaging becomes our number 1 salesman, right? I think it's super, super important to be very planful and think about our packaging, make it more modern, and so that it breaks clutter. I think I'll not say all those pieces that you have just 3 seconds to break the clutter. All of those things exist, right? But today in this digital day and age, packaging with QR codes and all can really tell your stories. I think stories is super important to build connection. And we've seen brands, think about its beverage brand called Paperboard, if you've thought about it. Really deeply Indian products like Ampanna, now marketed as craft beverages with stories of nostalgia. It's really doing well. I think we can really learn how can we make packaging a superpower. And I think the last piece, this is, marketing is all about stories, right? It's not about an ad jingle or anything. For me, India has, a lot of heritage, but if we are able to connect it with global trends, then suddenly adoption becomes big. Think about turmeric, right? modern day, wellness thing. Think about spices. Spices, you can market spices as masalas, but if you market spices as for your adventurous weekend cooking in a Western country, that's a completely different piece. Think about, millets, right? Now, we can sell millets, but if you market millets as gluten-free super grains, then suddenly if you get that intersection of big global trends to what we have, I think those adaptations create the magic, right? For us to go from a small niche and ethnic Indian diaspora play to becoming something really big, that all of us can feel very proud of what we've built for India. So in a sense, in one line, culturally rich, but locally adapted to unlock scale. I think that's really important.
Thank you so much. Very helpful. I can recall one of the master chefs, I won't name, he renamed khichdi and dalia in many of the menus across the world, and he says the sales would actually reach 4 times the number what it was selling. So, but brilliant. Yeah, thank you. So I think what we are saying here for the MSMEs and the audience is perhaps spend the most on the product, spend more on packaging. Maybe you need to spend the least on promotion. If the product is very strong, if the packaging is strong, then perhaps promotion may be only a small element of your spend. But thank you so much.
Just one of the other things we need to unlock in India as a great example is influencers. You use micro-influencer, nano. We have a great example in a different category of ours. We sell wheel, surf, wheel, and where there is a Bihari influencer which has become viral. We use that influencer. We've got the kind of TAM that we've got, and the reach that we've been able to do is phenomenal versus what kind of monies and GRPs we spent on the TV. So using influencers now, and that doesn't stop. It can be a regional, and food is so all of us know, every 200 kilometers, I always say that India is a continent, not a country. You have Africa in it, you have Asia in it, and then you have Europe in it. So every 200 kilometers changes, and so are the influencers. So who are your regional, who are your influencers, food ones that you can use to amplify your product? I mean, that's a great multiple examples, but I think that's one just hit the ball out of the park. Therefore, we can think them not very expensive and use them to get into those places as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Very helpful. Perhaps we are making the larger or the macro influencers out of job with the micro influencers coming into picture. But thank you. Very helpful. Sunay, coming to you about supply chain. We've spoken about supply chain, and while we've spoken about different kinds of packaging and the products, etc., but ultimately it boils down to how do you export, what is the cost of exports, what is the cost of supply chain, how do you send your products, cheapest way possible, cheapest route possible. So there are so many supply chain issues which an industry would need to deal with. What are some of the things which an industry, or again, coming back to our audience, what are some of those things which MSMEs would need to keep in mind? What are the things which you as a big brand or you as an organization started thinking towards a good supply chain or towards a good export chain? What are those things to be kept in mind?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that one can look at. One is building it for yourself in terms of looking at how best what you are trying to export, if that is your agenda. Looking at your chain and trying to bring efficiencies at every stage, right? You may look at not doing it alone. I mean, I'm just looking at now from an MSME perspective, because everything, if you start building your own capacity and you start building everything from scratch, then it really becomes a massive challenge, right? Can some come together and look at especially not competing but complementary things, and then try and build scale in a partnership sort of a model, looking at some of the offerings that are there from the government, wherever they are, and looking for certain incentives that they can leverage. That could be another one. So I think you need to be, and I don't need to tell these to MSMEs. I mean, we look at a lot of these startups and MSMEs as probably more creative and more entrepreneurial and more experimentative than we ever are, right? A lot of big companies tend to be driven by the model, and you then tend to sort of be you need to I mean, we sometimes look at them to think creatively, and then really experimenting with the entire thing and looking at what best works. It's very hard. I mean, every category will have its own nuances, starting from again where you source to where you add value, and then which is your market that you're going to, and that model needs to work for you. So you need to think through that entire chain, and I think the best way to do it to build scale is possibly through a partnership model, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Gaurav, we spoke about exports, and investments and trade go hand in hand. Um, for again some of our MSMEs, entrepreneurs, which are the platforms or forums or government organizations where they can approach and they can ask for investments, B2B investments I'm talking about. They can ask for partnerships, alliances. Where are those even outward investment opportunities? Where are those export or trade opportunities? So which are those platforms, forums, etc., which you would like to talk about?
Thanks, Abhishek. And I think it's a critical piece for MSMEs. Uh, so if you look at, one, I would start first with incentives, which I already talked about in my previous question, that there are a lot of incentives and policy support that is available. And there have been, bodies like Invest India, and at the state level, Invest UP or an Index DB, or at Tamil Nadu Guidance Bureau. These all kind of, bodies that have been set up. And these bodies like us who've been set up are not just for the large companies, but also a lot of, MSMEs as well. What we've also been trying to do is at various, ministry levels as well. See, digital media and, internet penetration in India has been increasing at a very, very fast pace. What we need is to channelize the information at the right place, right? So we've been working with a lot of stakeholders. If you look at, a lot of central government ministries are coming up with their own investment promotion, websites, be it agriculture, be it MOPNG, be it MOFP, where, people can go look for the sectoral information, market opportunities. I'm not just talking about incentives, but for any MSME, it is also very important to understand the market opportunity, right? Which are the key stakeholders in their ecosystem who can help them, be it with research, be it with technology, be it with investments. And then you have entities, various cells that have been set up at various ministry levels or, at the state level that also help them for any kind of technology partnerships. So for example, any MSMEs that are looking for any kind of technology support, there are institutions that are set up. There are two NIFTMs that are set up by the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. One is in Kundali, Haryana. The second is in Tanjavur, Tamil Nadu. They work a lot with large companies as well as MSMEs to identify new technologies for solving problems at the ground level. There are many agriculture universities and food processing universities that have been working with a lot of, such kind of MSMEs. Then you have various social enterprises that are working, incubating with a lot of such startups. And of course, programs like Startup India and all have been working with these kind of startups and MSMEs to try and, mentor them, getting them more investment opportunities, all of them, a lot of other things, such things as well. Then at the, larger level as well, we have looked at various countries which have, strong financial capabilities. We have, financial FIIs and wealth funds, and which are the key areas where they could look at opportunities for investing. So for the same, we created an, a portal called the India Investment Grid, right? Similarly, we had ours while during the recent visit of our Honorable Prime Minister to Qatar and their vice versa, their visit to India, we had reached out to a lot of food processing companies looking for foreign investment, where they had technologies, where they had good market, where they had investment opportunities. So we took them to, countries like, investors in countries like Qatar and other countries in the Middle East such as UAE, where they had, money to invest in, but they were looking for investable projects. So these kind of opportunities are being created at all levels. So I would urge the MSMEs and the industry to, utilize such opportunities and be a part of them, and we'll be happy to support wherever required.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I think you listed down beautifully some of the platforms, even digital platforms, which could be looked at from the comfort of their mobile phones. Thank you. We are close to 11, and I would love to open the floor for the audience to ask you questions. I have many more questions. I would love to puzzle you more, but I think we'll throw the floor open and we'll ask the audience if they have any questions for you. Any questions? Otherwise, I can continue. Yes, please. Can somebody please pass on the mic? Uh, or
That's
just
okay, I can speak.
go ahead, please.
If I was an MSME, I had very small amount of money and I wanted to start something. And I wanted to take a product global. I don't know what to take. If I can ask each of you for just one idea, one demand space or one product, which I can start working on tomorrow, what would that be?
You're asking for a product or you?
Product, a demand space, anything. Assume that I have to take something global.
Okay, lovely. So she's asking for the product only. Forgot about packaging or promotion. She's
No,
asking.
just, I mean, that, I'm assuming that comes with.
Lovely, sure. Go ahead.
I wish we could answer that. We would have a scaled business in that category right now already. Yeah. But there are many opportunities. I think very difficult to just pinpoint. It depends on what your competence is, right? It needs to start from there, and then you need to look at. You can't just look at outside and say, okay, here everything. It's an open sort of market, etc. And I'll figure out what I have to do. No, I think the best thing is look at what you bring to the table in terms of your competence. And all of the MSMEs, always I've seen, I mean, there is a very strong purpose, a very strong competence that they start off with. Build on your idea and then develop it in terms of saying, and I think he gave a great example, then marry it to global trends, then marry it to global maybe flavors and formats and packaging. But start from your strength. And don't necessarily just look at, okay, I can do anything and let me figure it out. That would be my approach. Happy to hear others.
Any other ideas you would like to?
Many ideas with all what he's been talking about.
You guys have been wanting to be an entrepreneur. Now you'll spill your beans and.
My strategy actually wants the answer that he's asking for me.
Exactly.
I think you should only answer that.
I think you answered it beautifully. To me, at the heart of everything is consumer. I always believe that, like Aladdin Chirag, as and when the consumer rubs it, we have to be available and cater to his or her needs as and when she wants. So, whatever is consumers looking at, there are two big trends today. There is one of convenience, there is one of health and wellness. Ready to cook, ready to drink, ready to eat is very important for us because that's what we need. And then on health and wellness is so much more easy and that. But for every of this thing, you don't need to have products which have taste, and any of those things will become table stake in times to come. To me, one important thing is, as you rightly said, what is the core that we stand for? And that is something you should excel in. Trying to copy managing, excel in what we do best. And I always say, think big, start small, and then scale it up really big. So, we'll have ambition that is really, really big, and that's how we should go about it. No direct answer.
Go ahead, Nitin. She's still waiting for that answer.
No, what I would say is that it's going to be really challenging if you try to do it on your own. I guess because we are talking about building brand India, so this needs to be what is India good at? What's India's story, provenance? All of those things become super important, right? And it's not about creating something of your own, but participating in a big trend, where India has a strong right to win in global markets. I just give you one example, right? And this is not a food and bev example, but I genuinely believe that if we can replicate something like that on food and bev, that's fantastic. Think about Ayurveda, right? It is so big today. I don't think any big company or MSME kind of built that trend, right? Think about how it got done. Ministry of Ayush, they unlocked, all the regulatory hurdles to be able to build that this is a credible health and wellness system, medical care. Then there were industry associations that unlocked, right, exports, incentives, all of those pieces. So these are happening, we know, right? And then you talk about companies to put out their differentiated products. We had Himalaya, we had Dabur, we had Patanjali, so many of these companies who invested in the trend and really built that piece out. And I feel that from a food and bev standpoint, he spoke about health and wellness as such a big trend. Absolutely agree. What is India good at? UN in 2023, they spoke about millets as a very, very big opportunity, right? India is the forefront of, millets. It could be the next chia. It could be the next quinoa, right? So think about where India has a right to succeed and participate in a big trend. I think millets is one, but convenience, ready to eat, and all of those pieces exist as well. So yeah. So don't invest basis what I just said. But it's just the
This is
approach.
being recorded,
It
huh?
is. It is just the approach. I would say that we should think about where India is good at, and then go after that. And I'm sure we can all build capabilities to participate.
Then I'm going to just compare with 30 seconds on this. I think millets is a beautiful one. Yesterday in our conversation, I had an opportunity with Prime Minister Modi ji, and he was so curious to ask that where are, for example, Horlicks has been nourishing the world for last 150 years. It was they used to sponsor Olympics, and we own the brand. It's thank you. And I was walking him through the process of how it's made. It's with malted barley, wheat, and millets. And he looked so deep, and he asked me so deep questions. Where are you sourcing millets from? Are you taking Himachal millets? What is to be done? When do we take it across the world? What do you do with it? So I was telling him, for example, millets in India and Horlicks has been there, but example, Horlicks today in Sri Lanka is added with tea. In Malaysia, it's with chocolate. So taking India millets to global is not I think we have to start looking at differently, not as an opportunity for just business, but as a cultural mission as Indians to take how you take our strengths globally and get to the global plate.
So Gaurav, I think the big piece is how can government also play to build some of these mega trends and things about India. Ayurveda is one, millets is second. What are those 5 or 6 big things that we want to promote where India has a significant right to succeed? Maybe there is opportunity for the sector to really come together and think about, and then we build backward capabilities, as Sunay was talking about, all of those infrastructure to be able to succeed there. So, yeah.
So actually, this was one of the key points that we discussed yesterday in the CEO roundtable as well. That which are the key areas where India could actually focus. Like a lot of countries, for example, Korea, use their K-pop and their cultural traditions to market the Korean food. However, Indian food has reached only the Indian restaurants abroad. How could we create a processed food brand? So maybe that is something which the industry and the government could work together. Maybe utilize our software elements such as maybe Bollywood or yoga to promote the Indian culinary heritage abroad, and also ensure that the food that we create as a global Indian brand there signifies a cultural heritage, quality, and credibility, because that is something that brand should stand for.
Thank you. So since the industry is giving you a consulting answer by going round and round, I as a consultant will give an industry response. I personally think the opportunity lies in the cutlery now. And banana leaf, believe me, mark my words, is going to be the next big food. The servings on banana leaf, it still hasn't reached the world. We haven't thought in that direction. So we have an opportunity to partner on this. So I've already filed a patent on this, so don't worry. Anyway, thank you so much for your question. Any other question? Yes, please.
I just wanted to take, and because Gaurav is also here, we have free trade agreements being signed, right? And these free trade agreements, people do not know as goods, services, and people movement. How can companies in India and MSMEs in India leverage that to sort of take our own traditional strengths to different markets? Is something which, if somebody or someone
the free trade agreements, as he rightly mentioned, has a
So I think for all the free trade agreements that India has recently signed or we are discussing, so there are two aspects. Both the sides try and protect their domestic industry, right? We want to get access for our products, they want to get access for their products. But while we negotiate, we also need to take in mind that our domestic industry gets protected. So for example, for wine, right? I'll give you an example for wine. So countries like Australia and others have been trying to get access for wine, but if Indian made wine, usually you see the price is less, right? If we give them access for wine which is into a certain price point, which is at the lower price point, then our Indian industry would get damaged, right? So all of these things have to be taken care of. While these kind of FTAs are being negotiated, always inputs from the industry have been sought, right? Which are the key areas that you would want the government to take care of? And in fact, today Negi sir is also here, who represents the economic division of MOFPI. He is the one driving all of these trade agreement negotiations as far as the agri-food sector has been concerned. So industry must come forward sharing their views in terms of which are the key markets that you look at, what are the key segments that you want to take care of, and then of course these negotiations take time but certainly helpful. But what we've seen in the past, these negotiations have been majorly what the government has a little understanding or inputs that have been received. So we would urge the industry to give more and more input so that such kind of FTAs are beneficial for the industry on a larger footprint as well.
And at the same time, I think the government is trying to make industry aware of some of the benefits which lie in the FTAs. Unfortunately, there is very little awareness among the MSMEs about how can we leverage the FTAs, services, people, as you mentioned, and of course the products. But certainly, I think government is making a lot of efforts in this particular regard. So, yeah. Last question. Yes, thank you.
Okay, this one is to Rajneet. My name is Amit. I head comms for PepsiCo India. I think you touched a very interesting facet is on influencers marketing. I also lead that, by the way, for the group. The question is that since we're talking about taking brand India outside India, what role do you think influencers can play while they're helping brands become mainstream in India, taking the Indian brands outside because they are a good voice? We have social media now transcend boundaries. So what Unilever has doing amazing work on influencer. We've seen how you've upped your marketing on influencer marketing. So what more can they do? What is the message for them? There are a lot of content creators around listening to you. So love to hear that. How can India brand go out through influencers?
No, it's a good question, and here are my 2 points on it. One is we have to think about influencers as a real serious investment, not just as marketing tick mark. ये भी कर लेते हैं, right? Some budget being there on digital. There has to be a serious disproportionate amount of money that we have to invest behind influencers, and knowing your influencers, what they're going to do for your brand, what they stand for, not for the sake of it, but you have to do that for sure. The second is, I think our brands itself are big influencers. I mean, if as to the point that we've been talking about, what we're going to do with our brands and influencers. So there's a great campaigns that we've seen globally. At Unilever, we've had this amazing campaign of a very old brand called Vaseline, right? Different from food, but I'm talking about Vaseline brand, which is, okay, that's been used on lips. And they went through this viral media. If you YouTube it, you'll know the one. It won the best award this time as well, Cannes as well, which is about what all can you do with your Vaseline. And it just went viral with people saying, I can use it on my nose, on my, on my pets, something. I can use it in cooking. And it was like, are you going to, is it okay or not? Is it verified? So there are things that can go viral without investing too much. So you have to think about it. But it was again product out in, not focus on the influencer, but your product. Where we can go wrong as marketeers could be at times, that we are so focused on the influencer himself that the brand can get lost. My brand has to be, and the product has to be the center of everything, and that's how you can take it to the globe. That's my 2 bits on this one.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, please.
It was a session about R&D and how can we grow the food industry about this. And I love this, what Indian cuisine is about the quality, and what outside quality also likes the quality of the food. But there are 2 perspectives on this.
The existing varieties to enhance the value of those components which needs to be fortification, we all understand. No, we are add to enhance the value. So those biofortified varieties are available in ICR institutes. You can put one indent through your organization that we want to purchase the biofortified varieties to IARI, our institute, and you purchase that varieties and you can make that varieties to grow with the standard specific recommendations given by the IARI, and that can be supported by our Sandeep's organization in Gujarat, and we will be happy to give you that. The processing of the biofortified, so we know
driving force for economies and also lead more better technology where we can, I like the point, from farm to the outside.
Can be grown, but you can procure
See, I
fortified
lost the
varieties.
numbers by
In
the way,
millets
sorry.
also it has come.
But yeah,
This is anyway beyond our pay grade to answer
So I
these
think
questions
the point
around
on
R&D.
how do we
Where
scale
800
R&D
crore
at,
rupees is
you know,
there
and
for giving the up to
some of the
finance to
points I think that we
startups.
have to look at,
So
and
I
I'll
think you can go
again
like
be
that.
happy to hear
Thank
others'
you.
points of view as well. Uh, I think we need to start working on, again, if we want Indian food to go global, we need to work on building R&D and technologies that work for Indian food, right? I'll give you an example. We are completely about Indian food. MTR Eastern, we are completely about Indian food. It's very easy to get a global technology and adapt it to India when you have to make a ketchup into a cube, right? But if you have to make a fully automated gulab jamun plant, I'm not sure how great that technology is, right? So there is a lot of investment, otherwise people have to do by themselves. So if you build an ecosystem, get NIFTIM in, get CFTRI, get the academic, get some experts in, and use some of the policies and incentives that the government is doing, and focus on building technologies and starting from look at the entire ecosystem. That's why I was saying attack maybe a couple of categories or a couple of products and then build it, right? Build it in a concerted way. Use the entire your expertise, external experts, academia, and then invest behind it. Use some of the incentives, help scale, use MSMEs to come in. I really believe the MSME ecosystem has some great creative things that they can bring to the table, and then work together in building one or two products or one or two categories, scale them up, then use that as an example. I think I said that earlier, to replicate in some of the other spaces.
Just a very short one. Such great marketing minds in front of me, so I couldn't resist asking this. A lot of you spoke about India coming together as one and fighting the battle outside. And if brand India was one brand, and in marketing we say define the enemy, who would the enemy be? If brand India is fighting a battle.
Okay, how do I answer this one? No, I've always believed that it's not about competition, and a lot of the times we think about who my competitor is, who I need to overthrow and fight against. I've always believed that how do you become more relevant to the consumer? So it's consumer centricity is far more important than competitive centricity. And therefore, if we think about building brand India, it's not going to be about who I need to fight. I think it's going to be about who are the people that I want to be more relevant to. And therefore, how can I adapt and build a proposition that they resonate with more than anything else they think about, right? So it's more about building brand India than trying to identify who I need to take the fight against. Because think about it, right? Indian food has such rich cultural heritage, bold flavors. Honestly, we have a winner at our hands. I think it's just about galvanizing the overall system in all the pieces that we just spoke about to really take it to the world. So think consumer, don't think competition is what my advice would be.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate all of you sparing time and sharing these thoughts. I think we've been a big hit because people from the other rooms are actually coming in, opening the doors. So thank you so much. Sneh, over to you.
On behalf of World Food India, I'd like to thank all the panelists. Thank you so much for your insightful discussion, and our moderator, Mr. Gupta, for guiding it so seamlessly. And with us, we have Shyam Singh Negi sir, who is a senior economic advisor at Ministry of Food Processing Industries. Sir, please, you would like to felicitate all the speakers. So, first, Rajneet Kohli sir, Executive Director, Hindustan Unilever Limited. Then we have Mr. Nitin Bhandari, General Manager, PepsiCo. Mr. Sunay Bhasin, CEO MTR Foods. Mr. Gaurav Sisodia, Vice President, Invest India. And our moderator, Mr. Abhishek Gupta, partner, EY. And thank you so much, everyone, for being a wonderful audience. Thank you.